You're in the place where mysteries and the missing meet, where conspiracies lurk around every corner. Welcome to the Deep, Dark Truth.
Welcome back, Deep Dark Truth Seekers. I'm Mikey.
You didn't even do it right. No, we're keeping that.
Welcome back to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. I am Mikey.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mo.
What the hell is going on?
We're going to shake things up, I guess.
Okay.
We might as well.
All right, guys.
Throw it out the rule book.
And guys, today's episode will be the first edition of Secret Gay History. I don't know about you guys, but I am excited. Are you?
You could say I'm just gay with anticipation.
I'm pumped. When around the same time I had the idea that I wanted to do this podcast, I wanted to do an entire podcast that was only Secret Gay History.
Yes.
And have, per episode, cover a single person. And then I got, really into this. I always was into conspiracies and mysteries and stuff, but there was some case that at the time I just was thrown down the rabbit hole, and I was like, well, it's this one. And yeah.
Say no more. You know as much, I've done the exact same thing. I've been diving down this rabbit hole for a long time. So, anywho, we will go through a few historical figures from the past and discuss the mysteries revolving around any queer identity they may or may not possess.
And a lot of them don't possess them, but we got receipts.
We do got receipts. That is true. There's going to be some that are ruled out. Some are going to be very quickly case closed. Others are going to be left up for interpretation. So we shall dive down. Shall we get started?
Yes.
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
First up is Anna Eleanor Roosevelt. So Eleanor Roosevelt, as she is mostly preferred. She is the longest serving first lady from 1933 to 1945. A huge activist and diplomat. As I was doing all this research, I did not know, but Truman called her the First Lady of the World because of what she would do with the UN. In doing the United Nations, she literally sat as a chairman on 3 different major women and human rights committees that she created throughout the UN. So that is what I guess she's mostly known for. Interesting fact, she married her distant cousin FDR, who is her 4th cousin once removed. Some people don't know that. Some people do. Her uncle was President Theodore Roosevelt, who's the 25th president.
It was also way too late in history to be marrying your cousin.
You're right.
We're not talking about something which also just kind of helps substantiate the fact, it's just something's not right. I mean, you just got to figure out what it is.
During this time period in America, it was a huge struggle for families and legacies and dynasties to kind of happen. You know what I mean? So I feel like this was a move to keep it in the Roosevelt line, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And if you dive down into research, you are going to find that Eleanor Roosevelt and Franklin Delano Roosevelt's mom had this gigantic, huge, long episode of feuding between them. And ultimately it was FDR's mom that kind of raised the kids, had all the say-so, ruled their coup in a sense. So, but that's not what we're discussing here. What we're discussing is her sexuality. So if we get back on board, Roosevelt disliked having sex with her husband. She has been literally said this numerous times, and
just throw that out there.
Wait, she said it numerous times. Who did she tell?
She once told her daughter Anna on record that it was an ordeal to be born. That she found it very cumbersome and very tiring. Legit. This is what I've been finding. And
okay, to be fair,
yeah,
it could have she just might not have been that into him.
True.
He could have just been mad at it.
Absolutely.
He absolutely could have been bad. And you try telling the president of the free world that
Right.
he got a bad dick.
Correct. So the first time this actually became a conspiracy theory and like what drove it was the Roosevelt finding like love letters of FDR's to a mistress. And FDR was very much like contemplating leaving in these letters, and he was having a full-blown affair basically. When she brought it into light and everything became apparent, it was very open kind of thing. It was FDR's mother and their political advisor that like divorce was not an option. They should stay together for political sake, basically sweep it under the rug kind of thing. You do your thing, I'll do mine. And so that was kind of a adoption that everyone kind of, I guess, took on, which is kind of sad, but I don't know.
I mean, I feel like it depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
Like I feel like people have said that about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton a lot, and they're like, it's sad. And I'm like, it's not sad. What are you talking about? Like, they both know exactly what they're doing.
And I kind of agree. I think they both kind of got married quickly for no reason, just because it was political sake. Why not stay together because of political sake, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like besides politics, she probably married him because he was her beard. And if she's going to have a beard, it might as well be somebody that might end up being president. And I agree with everything. I agree with that.
At the end of the day, she wanted to change the world, and she was more able to do that as first lady, you know? So
yeah.
The key things we need to look at in this scenario, because it is a little more not cut and dry as other ones that we're going to talk about.
Part of the reason that we're covering this is that some of these are just flat out miseducation. They never told you about them in school. There's very famous people that were out of the closet hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
And you learned about them in school, and yet they never told you that those people were gay. And that just comes back to representation. And, oh, it's such a big thing now, blah, blah, blah. And, oh, is this a fad? That was really popular in like the early 2000s. Like, oh, are you actually gay? Or are you following a fad? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Absolutely not. That's the most ridiculous thing, because people seen it as like new, and it's not new. It's as old as humankind. Literally as old as humankind. Same thing with people say it now about trans people. And it's like, absolutely not. Thousands of years, my man. Thousands of years.
Secret trans history coming soon.
And I mean, honestly, we kind of have to put a nod to, like, in 2011, California was the first state to enforce teaching LGBT history in textbooks on an education level. In 2011 was the first to do so.
Yeah, so we're obviously from the Detroit suburbs, and compared to a lot of people, especially as I got older and got friends in other states, they were like, we didn't learn about evolution. We didn't have sex education. I'm like, I'm sorry, you didn't what? What do you mean?
And we're talking about something that's even more put off than sexual education. We're talking about LGBT history, which is even more far put off.
Which is insane to me that it's like progressive to talk about the fact that people existed.
Yeah, they existed. They were part of our history and part of... it's crazy.
To be fair, just Arizona... was it Tucson specifically? I don't even know if it's been struck... Yes, it has been struck down by now. Wasn't allowed to teach anything positive about Hispanic culture and Latina culture. So, you know.
What?
Yeah, that's where we're at. Anyway, back to the gays.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's gross.
Yikes, guys.
Yeah, yikes. All right, anywho, back to Eleanor Roosevelt, right? So there are some instances that I dug up, you could kind of go your one way or the other. I'm also covering Eleanor Roosevelt first and somebody else last because I feel like there's a lot more conspiracy to it. One of the things is that they claim with Eleanor Roosevelt is that Amelia Earhart and her were very close. They used to sneak out together. They would go out. They would attend parties together. They had a close relationship, and it would last until Amelia Earhart disappeared. So,
Absolutely the first bury your lesbians plot in real life.
I was like, first of all, this is amazing and I ship them.
Yeah,
Second of all, Amelia Earhart disappeared into Eleanor Roosevelt's vagina. Anyway.
I mean, there is literally no evidence or proof that they were ever sexually involved in any way, shape, or form.
There's also no proof that's
right,
not
exactly,
what had happened.
That's not. Exactly. And, like, from doing my research, like, they spent years and years of their lifetimes together, and they were always very close friends. Whether or not they were sexually active throughout it, I don't think that's the case, because I think Eleanor Roosevelt had other relationships, but I think that at one point, I 100% would think that this might have been a thing.
The very least one of them is crushing on the other.
So the next plot of why, like, she's accused of, I guess, being gay. Accused, that's the wrong wording, but you know what I mean. Lorena Hickok was a reporter who fell madly in love with her, and this is dubbed as kind of a thing that was happening during the presidential campaign of FDR, second round. And she was going to write a biography about Eleanor and the whole situation. And during this time period, there's about 10 to 15 letters between the two of them. And they think that it's 10 to 15 just because things get lost or destroyed or moved around in such cases. But they included statements like, I want to put my arms around you and kiss you at the corner of your mouth. And I can't kiss you, so I kiss your picture good night and good morning.
Straight.
Like,
Super duper straight.
And so, I mean, this was coming from Lorena to...
Just gals being pals.
Yeah, that's it. It's just gal pals, right? I mean, this was from Lorena to Eleanor, and some historians dispute that it was a crush from Lorena to Eleanor. I think that it goes beyond that. I don't know what you guys think, but...
Even if she was, like, a self-loathing gay, because, I mean, those still exist, but especially in this time period, they existed more. It still had to have been acknowledged at some point.
Right.
Because you don't just let your friend... you don't just let your friend keep writing you letters that are like, I want to make out with you just a little bit, though. Just, like, just a little. Right. A teeny bit on your face.
Right.
Like, a drunk letter. Like, hey, wouldn't it be silly if we'd made out right now? That'd be so ridiculous.
Hello. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Oh my god. Shut up, Meg.
I mean, making out... Okay, I make out with a lot of my close friends, so I guess I'm the wrong person to ask. Moving on. At Franklin's inauguration, she wore a sapphire ring on her ring finger from Hickok, which at the time, the White House knew that she was out as a lesbian.
I'm sorry?
Not Eleanor. They knew Hickok was out as a lesbian.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also,
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty solid proof, isn't it?
So even if they didn't have a relationship, it's kind of strange that the White House at the time was just totally cool with the lesbian reporter hanging out. And now it wouldn't be weird. Like, now, Rachel Maddow could probably just walk around the White House and nobody would say anything. But this is not the case. Now
that you say that, there is, like, idiosyncrasy in that she was compromised as a reporter because of their relationship. So she stopped being a reporter and weaseled her way into the White House as to be, like, a part of the New Deal situation that she was drafting with multiple people. So, yeah.
Wild.
Sneaky lesbian.
When I'm talking about, like, the inauguration and everything else, she was in the White House working on the New Deal, not as a reporter, but as, like, something else entirely.
Interesting.
You feel me?
Yeah, I feel you.
I feel like she wouldn't have gotten that if Eleanor wasn't allowed, like, didn't allow that to happen, kind of thing.
Right. If you're uncomfortable with this reporter sending you love letters, that reporter doesn't then show up in your inner circle.
Correct.
So she wore a sapphire ring.
Mm-hmm.
Did everybody know it was from Hickok?
From doing my research, it seems very apparent that almost everyone in the White House knew that there was some type of relationship going on with them. But like, it was just normal.
Sounds normal.
So, to further add to the like evidence of her being homosexual, she had several close friends that were women, and lesbian couples included. Like, they actually named them Nancy Cook and Marion Dickerman, Esther Lappé, and Elizabeth Reed. Like, it is well known that she had this, like, society or, like, close group network of friends of lesbian couples around her.
Gotta find your queer family, man.
Right.
It's like the first thing you do. Sometimes you get one before you even come out, and then you're like,
Right.
oh, it's weird how I gravitated towards 20 gay people.
Right.
As me, a straight person.
Yeah, that's so weird. I didn't know what was happening, when I would get hard looking at, at random Ryan Phillippe, movies, but I had so many gay friends around me at that point in time. It was just the weirdest thing ever.
Whatever. I'm just an ally who's really passionate.
On the opposite side, here is where this is the great debate. She supposedly had romantic relationships with the New Deal administrator, Harry Hopkins, and presidential bodyguard Earl Miller. They would have a relationship until her death. Earl Miller was assigned to be the bodyguard of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but he taught her all of the sports and all of the things. They were constantly together. They had a relationship. Everyone knew about it. Everyone talked about it. It was in the newspapers all the time. The infidelity was not just female roles from Eleanor Roosevelt and FDR. Harry Hopkins, who had been a New Deal administrator 5-10 years prior from bodyguard Earl Miller, they had a huge relationship. So...
Wait, Harry and Earl?
Harry and Eleanor.
Okay.
And then Eleanor had a relationship with Earl after that fact, like 10 years later. Letters from Earl Miller to Eleanor have believed to be like bought, hidden, or destroyed because they had such a long-gauging relationship all the way until her death. Some speculate that she was homosexual. Some speculate that she was bisexual. And
I was just going to say, there is another thing in the middle. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Talking about a false binary.
I'm just saying, she definitely was down.
Yeah,
she was DTF. It sounds like
one of the things where it seems like it's either she was homosexual or she was bisexual or...
She was not straight.
I don't think in this instance she was using sex as a political or a social movement, because that can be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but also, your gal pal that writes you letters about how they want to make out with your face, you don't wear their ring.
Yes.
What is this planet?
There's leading someone on, and then there's leading someone on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we don't live on a planet where that is just a thing.
I have read in earlier, I've done the research now, but I have read earlier on that she might have had a third person involved in her escapades with Hickok, and she started having towels and linens in the White House embroidered with the three of their initials together. And it was not Roosevelt. It was not Roosevelt. So it seems as if, even if she wasn't, which it seems like she was, involved with Hickok, she had a very large group of lesbian friends that she was very much a part of.
Embroidering some of their names on towels.
Right. So.
Got it.
What level do you even start embroidering towels?
I don't know.
That isn't like we hooked up one time when we were drunk. That's like we're in a throuple marriage. Like
U-hauling.
Yeah, we're U-hauling. We are not telling anyone because our marriage can't be legal, but like in our minds, we are quite married. You don't just embroider. What the? Okay.
Yeah.
She didn't even do it with the real husband.
So thoughts. What are your thoughts? Is she homosexual, bisexual?
She
confused?
might be bi, but she could also have just been.
I'm giving her like a Kinsey 5, like closer on the lesbian scale, but Shit happens. Homo flexible.
It's hard to know at that point of suppression, having to be closeted, whether or not somebody is participating in heterosexual sex because they feel like they have to, or whether they want to. So without letters to the dude, I have to agree with Chip.
And that's going to be said across all boards when we come across everyone that we're talking about, because it's different time periods and different cultures and things of that nature. But I'm going to have to go with that. I think that she was bisexual at the least, but I probably think that she was homosexual. And I think her relationships with any of these guys that are mentioned were surely just that. Relationships with guys as friends.
You're being so formal when you're like, she was a homosexual.
She did have 6 children, though.
That's the word homosexual. Usually homosexuals don't even say homosexual anymore.
You're being a bad gay.
It's not a bad gay, but it's like a straight person being a scientist and discovering gay people. I think he might be one of those homosexuals.
Is he, an Eleanor Roosevelt fan?
Friend of Dorothy.
There it is.
I guess if you guys are just gonna make fun of me the whole time,
that's what this podcast is.
Welcome to the podcast. Have fun hosting.
Yay! Are we stamping Eleanor as gay or not gay? We have to stamp.
I mean, if it's queer, not queer,
she's queer.
Super mega queer.
I'm stamping queer. Okay, we're all in the same boat. Okay. All right, moving on.
She's been approved. You're going to Hollywood, Eleanor. Sorry.
Your welcome package is in the mail.
Alexander the Great is who we are going to talk about next.
Alexander the Great is one of my favorites.
Okay, so it is a well-known debate that Alexander the Great might be gay, while others are somewhat offended as a Greek lawyer almost brought an injunction for it over the portrayal of him in Alexander the movie. Others have not been so controversial and are willing to stamp Alexander the Great as gay.
Oh, he's super gay. He's the only person...
Oh, so you're coming out quickly.
We can't even deny this one.
When your public school teacher can't even, in the year 2004, can't even say anything against it. And it's like, yeah.
I'm going to stamp this one as no, actually.
What?
Yep, I'm going to stamp this one as no.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. All right, so we're talking 320 BC, right? This is the time reference that we're talking about. So I'm going to go over some facts for and against his homosexuality. All right. First up is Calixena, a courtesan brought by his parents at a young age. Because his mom felt that he had womanish ways, wanted to bring in a suitor younger versus older. And his mother continued to beg him to bed her to no avail. I mean, this was what some modern historians believe is the evidence of his homosexuality. And other historians believe is the cover up at the gunshot, I guess, picture of his homosexuality. It doesn't exist, or just kind of Hail Marrying something, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like there's other smoking guns.
Yeah, exactly. I feel after doing the research, this is what it's said to be the smoking gun, and I don't feel like that's the smoking gun at all.
No.
All right. So Barsine was a girl that Plutarch wrote about and believed is his only heterosexual experience he ever had before being married. Well, the speculation that Heracles is their child. Some speculate that that was never their child and it was just a tool used in that war at that point in time. There's really no way to go about this one way or the other than she's just a woman that Plutarch brings up, and it's really not that big of a case, I guess. Real big cases come with Bagoas and Hephaestion.
Hephaestion is who I learned about in school.
Right, exactly, who most people learn about. We're going to tackle Bagoas first. Bagoas was a eunuch boy toy given to him by a Persian noble. Some say that a eunuch boy toy given to him by a Persian noble means absolutely nothing, because during this time period, I don't know if we have to discuss this or not, but there is social constructs in Greek and Roman belief during this time period that giving eunuchs from a different nationality or upbringing, such as Persian or Ottoman or Egyptian, is like a present given to you to do what you want with it. So it's just an object at that point, and they don't really look at it as a human being, which is absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it is absolutely terrible, but it's also part of, you can get sexual gratification from men and it doesn't have to mean anything. It was so commonplace for grown-ass men to have sex with, like, younger men or older boys.
We'll get to that when we get to Socrates.
I'll stop then.
But
spoilers.
During this time period, this was not crazy. Like, you might think this is a crazy notion, but it's not at all. Like, non-Greek on non-man, as far as Greeks were concerned, was completely legit. And they didn't mean sodomy, they just meant fellatio.
Just a little fellatio between bros. That's what I always say.
Between slaves.
Yeah, it was literally like, Mo, I bought you this eunuch, he doesn't have a penis, just use him for his mouth. And as a slave, use him however you feel is fit. He's not a human being. That's basically what it was.
I don't like
this. It's terrible.
I don't know if he's gay or not, but he's a rapist.
No, I know. Right, exactly. Hephaestion, if we move on to him, was considered his, like, bosom buddy, is what they put in quotations every time I've ever looked it up. Yeah, bosom buddy. That's what it is.
My bosom friend.
Right. So he's a longtime youth companion, who was raised with him and was taught by the same guy as him, which means they both gave him head, for the record. I mean, not to laugh about it, but they both gave him head.
The way that you said it was like,
They both received lots of gifts for it and lots of education for it. So that just was like a common thing. Like, I give you education and gifts.
And you give me blowjobs.
Why is giving head for education such a trope? Why is that a thing?
I'll do anything.
If males started the whole world, it sounds like something they would put into legit.
You're not even wrong. Like, burn the patriarchy. Burn it.
Exactly. I agree. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that Hephaestion was 100% gay as far as like sodomy with Alexander the Great, even growing up. Because even their teacher, who was, at that time, the teacher, mentor, whatever, however you want to say it.
Aristotle.
Yeah, Aristotle, as describing them as one soul abiding by two bodies. So I'm pretty sure he saw a gay relationship. I'm not sure, but we need a little bit of background. Alexander the Great married two women and bore them no children on the same day. And they were both Persian nobles.
Yeah.
Yes, he married both of them, which was unheard of at the time, but nobody questioned it because he was royalty, which was baffling to historians at the time. But he had so much charisma and so much pull and so much backing that it didn't matter. He was like, I'm going to have two wives, and that's that. And they didn't question it at all, like at all.
So gay he needs two beards.
Right. Before all of that, he had married Roxana, and he had one child, supposedly. She was Sogdian. The two women that he married after that were Persian, and he once had a fling with an Amazonian woman named Thalestris. And so some historians believe that any type of marriage or sexuality that he had was based on a social context to it, or like a conquering context to it. He was not necessarily heterosexual. It was just he was using that as a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
He didn't really abide by religious or lawful constructs in that sense. He was militant based, so he just always seen everything as a conquest to the next. Him marrying several types of people from all different backgrounds or having these sexual things was a conquest to him, and it was not necessarily a personal thing for him. The biggest thing that they think that he is gay upon is that when his supposed right-hand man, Hephaestion, died or passed away, he put on this gigantic grand funeral at Babylon, and he asked the priests of their religion across many empires to grant him this honorable death as a god, because he was reverenced as a god, and he wanted the same type of what's the word I'm looking for?
Reverence?
Reverence, yeah, to him that he had because he served him his entire life. And the church came back that he did not want to give him divine honor as a god, but would grant him divine hero, at his funeral ship and whatever. Soon after, not even a month after receiving news of this, Alexander the Great had passed. But not before he had raised all this memorial about his lover, basically, and having him whatever. So I guess because of his sexual accounts and not boring any legitimate children, some historians believe that he was homosexual. Others, obviously, because of his marriages and his, children that aren't, I guess, it is what it is. So it's very much up for debate. This one is very, very much up for debate. Thoughts?
Just two souls inhabiting one body, bros being bros.
I heard you say you think it's straight.
Or one, sorry, it was one soul inhabiting two bodies. The other thing is weird.
Bro, we just have the same soul, no homo. Just because you got kids.
No, I agree. Chip, go on. Kids, I don't think
especially
kids
when your line depends upon secession. If you're a king.
Kids mean nothing. Marriages mean nothing in the face of heterosexuality.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think of Bagoas? Because apparently he was seen to be having a more than sexual relationship with his eunuch.
No, this is rape. I disregard this information as helpful. You can use anything as a sex
I brought it up, but I didn't mean it in the context that some historians believe that he had a relationship with Bagoas far more greater than any of his wives or his lover or general comrade, whatever it was.
I wish a lot of these had more context to them in terms of first-hand sources, because for all we know, he offered to free him and he was nah, I'm fucking a king. I ain't going anywhere. I'm fine. We just don't know.
Right.
Probably not what happened, let's be honest. But if he actually did have a greater relationship with him than with his wives, it actually was at least became a consensual relationship after he was given him as a present. How does that happen? You know what I mean, though.
Yes. What do you think about historians removing him altogether? Because at that time period, a eunuch boy like him, who is Persian with a Greek king, was viewed as nobody or nothing. He was just an object. So what do you think about that?
I would have to know other first-hand sources of other people that were given eunuchs and what they did with them, if they freed them, if they just cleaned their house, they were just given serving staff type positions, or if it really was
made
that they were
explicitly clear that he was sexual with this boy.
That the normal thing for eunuchs to only be sexualized.
It was completely normal.
Yeah, I'd need more information on their dynamic between them in that. But I would table it without specific evidence being God, I loved this eunuch boy. He was the best ever.
I always find it very strange, especially in the context of the time period in this specific region anyway, where everything is so binary. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks so binary that I find it really hard to believe that they looked at this boy and was oh, it's fine. Somebody cut off his genitals. He's nothing now. He might as well be a girl. He still looks like him. That's not how this works. You have to realize in your head that's not how it works. And if you don't, I feel you're way more into it than what you think you are.
I'm ready to stamp this one. Are you guys?
They're all just gonna get stamped queer for me, but it's fine.
Going queer with this one?
I would say that Aristotle, who is still to be revered as one of the smartest men that has ever lived, for him to say one soul abiding two bodies is not straight sounding.
I see no evidence of straightness here. Let's put it that way.
This might be the only one on the list, but I'm going to stamp them as straight.
Explain Hephaestion to me, how you rationalize their relationship.
Okay. As doing the research and seeing the 4 or 5 wives that he had, or lovers, female wives, and only having supposedly one youth companion, supposedly. I just think the research may have been that they had fooled around when they were young.
But they had a long enough relationship for him
I agree.
to...
I agree. But I also think that it was encouraged during that time period for Greeks to do that. Like, it wasn't unheard of for two men to fool around before they were 15 years of age.
Yeah, but then he still felt strongly enough about him after he died. Like, that's years.
No,
and years.
I think this was a personal homage to a friend or a close companion. And I'm stamping this one as straight. Sorry, you can't change my mind.
No.
Sorry.
I am not having you be made a god after you die because we're friends.
Yeah, I'm stamping it as straight. I think that he looked up to him and revered him and it was his best friend, and I would have done the same thing for you, Miranda. I don't think that it has anything to do with our sexuality.
Using my whole name.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to move on to something that's very similar so we can kind of tackle the same situation. Socrates is the next one on this list. He's the founder of Western philosophy, the Greek philosopher. 500 BC is the time that we're talking about. And I need to go into this before I go with anything else. So during these times, there was considered a model of pederasty, in which the head of household would woo a young man and act as his mentor and give him gifts. In return, the young man would perform fellatio. There was a complex social structure to when other behaviors they engaged in would happen, such as reciprocation, meaning the older man would give fellatio to the younger man. Anal sex, though, however, was frowned upon and considered abnormal behavior. And from doing my research, it was really bad. It wasn't just considered abnormal. From what I understand, it was really bad. I know a lot of gays kind of take this connotation, well, Greek culture allowed homosexual. That's not the case. It is literally not the case. They were more lenient in certain circumstances, but there was a social structure, like I said, that had to do with how this all played out. And in saying that, and in being that, Socrates had two notable students or younger men that he wooed, and that was Plato and Xenophon. And here lies the Socratic problem that we should discuss, because anything revolving around Socrates is a Socratic problem, because he never published anything, ever. The only people to publish anything was Plato and Xenophon, so below him, and Aristotle, and a few other people who might have known Socrates at the time, but some historians believe that Socrates was just created, and he didn't exist, which I find crazy. I do, but there lies the Socratic problem. He didn't write anything, therefore he doesn't exist. He's not on evidence.
Also, interesting aside, Plato, he had like written earlier in his like youth that same-sex lovers were blessed more. They were more blessed than ordinary mortals, basically.
Correct.
And then he like redacted that shit when he got older. He was like, no, I never said that. Don't listen to me. I was waiting
for the Deep Dark Podcast term of the day to show up, but it is redacted. The answer is redacted. Because Plato did redact that. He really did. And that's evidence. There is evidence that he redacted it, for sure. Thoughts?
For some reason, I thought that Socrates, I might be thinking of a different ancient Greek, was attempted to be prosecuted for sodomy. I thought it was Socrates.
No, I don't remember.
And he was like, you're not going to catch me, I'm the gingerbread man, and then you drink poison.
That was impiety against the gods, in which Socrates actually wrote about.
Wait.
So the only thing...
He wrote something?
What? No, he did. Well, from what Plato and Xenophon said. You know, he didn't physically write anything, but that's like what his teachings were about. Was the impiety of the gods, like impiety of thinking that you are more than you are. Socrates was supposedly like put in a bad light, or what is the word, interrogated, or because of his impiety towards the gods, thinking that...
It is like he didn't respect them.
Well, he was trying to teach that, like, you are your own god, in a sense. And, like, you have the control over... Like, so it got misinterpreted as to being, like, against the gods, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's why he was, like, imprisoned, supposedly.
Which is actually a lot of why Christianity was, like, persecuted when it first started, because
Correct.
there was all these different, like, things that you were supposed to do for the gods. Like, you were supposed to, like, put pinches of incense or, like, before an image of a god, or, like, do all these different things that were, like, to show respect. And Christians didn't
Right.
do any of those things. They had no ritualistic aspect when they first started. Now they do, obviously, especially depending on the denomination of Christian. But it was, like, said to be, like, disrespectful because of that.
Yeah, but I, like, from doing research and, like, taking the classes that I have in high school and college, he was never, like, questioned about sodomy or homosexuality. It was always impiety or offense to the gods in some way, shape, or form. So, this is one of these problems where we don't have a whole lot of information, and none of it is first-person source, like you were saying, Mo. I will have to stamp this as hetero, just because anything he did that would perceived as homosexual would not be the same according to their culture. I think that I'm going to stamp this one as
Culturally straight
heterosexual.
is what you're giving me.
Well,
I'm a non-practicing straight. I mean, like, my parents were straight, and
they were just very different during that time period, and I don't think he was in love with another man. I think he was homosexual. I mean, heterosexual. If he wasn't... Okay, he wasn't heterosexual.
queer, not queer.
But he definitely wasn't... that's not fair, because I think he was bisexual. Because anyone during that time period that did that, whether it was socially acceptable or not, I think would be considered bisexual.
I need more information.
So, question. Is bisexual during this time period a thing?
I mean, I think it's always a thing when there's proof that they enjoyed sex with multiple...
Correct.
I know. So, like, I would say that if we could see the letters, for example, from Eleanor Roosevelt, if she was receiving sexual letters from either of the men that she was, you know, said to be involved with
Correct.
towards the end of her life, I would say, oh, well, she obviously, like, enjoyed the attentions, at least. Even if you can't prove how much they liked sex. You can say, oh, well, she kept receiving these letters from both sexes, and she didn't turn either of them away, so she at least
Correct.
enjoyed the attention of both sexes, and therefore was probably bisexual. Whereas this, I got nothing.
I don't think that he really cared one way or another what people thought about him. And also, did
I'm
he
stamping
exist?
him fictional, so... Yeah.
Oh, you are? Oh,
What?
for real? Oh, Mo, do you think that he existed?
Yes.
Because I do. Okay.
Yes, I think he existed.
I think that he existed, and because of the terms that he would be labeled today as bisexual, but I think today, if he were to live, I would stamp him as heterosexual.
I think I might stamp him as heterosexual until I have proof of otherwise, and I don't feel like anything's been proof enough.
Right. But we all think it, right? Because that preconceived
Yeah, I mean, there's
what...
definitely a preconceived notion just because anytime any kind of sexuality is involved with the same sex, I'm like, listen, if you liked it, you're not as straight as you think you are. Like,
well, and
for
also
sure.
the time period, the Grecian time period, like, they say homosexuality was, like, thing. That's not always the case. But, it was more apparent in that time period than it was any other time period to be allowed as to be like okay or slide or accepted, I guess.
Before we go to the next one, we can cut this, but I want to know everything about why Chip thinks Socrates is fictional.
I want to be contrary. Entirely.
Oh, okay. I was just like, wait, is this the William Shakespeare? Do you have a William Shakespeare thing with Socrates?
I was exactly thinking of Shakespeare.
Because there's still like multiple secondhand sources, or well, firsthand of people that met him. There's paintings of his death.
There's
like,
paintings of a lot of death. There's
why?
also a painting of what's his face eating his children. That's bad evidence.
Okay, but yeah, he means Cronus. Listen, sometimes you just gotta eat a Zeus and see what happens.
Bad things happen. Don't eat a Zeus. Hot tip.
So you're stamping homosexual on this one, Chip?
Well, as far as the podcast is concerned, I'm stamping him fictional.
Oh, fictional. Oh, like he doesn't exist. Okay, all right, okay.
What a cop-out.
Cop-out.
Chip just didn't want to say not queer because it doesn't feel right inside. But I'm going to say
I'm going with queer in that, like, just because it was culturally queer, that doesn't make it not queer. Everything right now, it's culturally straight, but, like, people manage to be straight in straight culture. Not everyone is gay. So
True.
Some version of bi.
Very true.
And this is where we're going to end it for today because we are only halfway through. So next week you'll be getting a part 2 of Secret Gay History for Pride Month. Until next time, I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mike.
You just listened to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. See you next time. And remember, your local cryptids want to meet you.